Anita, it is something that it affects all of us. Why do you think it's been such a taboo subject?
I think because people don't want to talk about stuff that's uncomfortable, you know.
Okay.
And also, I think perhaps when I was a kid, perhaps people weren't so open in talking about sex as we are now. We talk about it all the time if we can. Yeah. But my mum went through a really bad menopause, and I remember it as a child. I remember her, she used to say to me, you know, this is something you're not going to look forward to. It's very unpleasant, you know. And she was very erratic. I went onto the pill when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then I remember when it got to later in my life, and then the menopause hit me. I actually think I've had 2 menopauses, really. Because it seems to go on it goes on for a very long time, doesn't it? But a girlfriend said to me, don't waste any time when you get those hot flushes. And, you know, when you're told about hot flushes, you think, oh, I can handle that. It's just a bit sweaty, I'll be fine. No, it's like you're dripping like you've been in a shower. Yeah? Who knew? And she said to me, when that happens, and it will, she said, go straight onto HRT. And so when it did happen, I was all dressed up, I was out at some lovely do, and then suddenly, ka-shung! It was down here, it was running down my face, it was down my body. I felt so embarrassed, I wanted to die. So I went straight to the doctors and I said, I think I want to go on HRT. He said, are you sure? I said, no, I'm absolutely 100% sure. Give it to me. They stopped immediately, and I have to say, right or wrong, whatever anybody thinks, I've been on it probably the best part of my life.
Yeah.
And I actually had to see a gynaecologist recently, not just because I fancied it, but because I did have a little procedure that had to be done, and I talked to him about HRT, and I said, I've been on it for a long time, you know, what's your take on it? And he said, as far as I'm concerned, you should stay on it for the rest of your life, because I think it's a good thing for women. The risk of breast cancer is very small compared to the good things that being on HRT.
And that's a very unusual thing for a doctor to say, and that's obviously because he's a specialist doctor, because actually if you go to a GP... I mean, I got the menopause at 45, and I went to I have a female doctor who's a similar age to me, and she said, you know, what are your symptoms? And she said, are you feeling a bit stroppy? And I went, it's hard to tell, really. Always. I've been like that since I was about 6. But she was fantastic, because obviously being a woman of a certain age as well, she got it completely, and I didn't get any of that. But then when I'd been on it for about 5 years, and I went to see a young male GP about something else, and he sort of said, oh, I see you've been on it for 5... You really should come off, you know. And I took his advice and did, and everything came back with a vengeance. Flushes, insomnia, everything. And so I just went straight back on it again and stayed on it. But young, I mean, I'm being sweeping generalisation here, but I think young, particularly young GPs don't understand it. They peddle this kind of constant thing of you shouldn't really be on it for a long time, and that's become the thing that people always say to you, oh, well, what about breast cancer? And it has a causal link. I think if you have a breast cancer issue anyway, you shouldn't go on HRT. But other than that, I think it's statistically
good that it does,
like being hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Or
I think it's so,
woman.
It's so interesting. I mean, I'm 46. I'm on HRT. And my mother went through the menopause when she was 40. I started when I was 42. And it's something that actually is quite liberating to be able to say, because I know that a lot of women are quite hush-hush about it. The sweating thing that you're talking about. Now, I know I always... You know, we all scrub up all right on the telly. You're expected to look immaculate at all times. I can remember I've sat here in the past before going on HRT, and this is the honest truth of it all. This is how it can get sometimes, with sanitary towels underneath my dress, because I would start sweating, and it would be there, it'd be running down here, trickling down there, down the back of your neck, and I was the same. I thought, oh, I always feel the cold. It'd be quite nice to get a hot flush. It's not like that. It's like a raging oven. However, having taken it now for the past couple of years, I feel normal again. You know, you're not changing your pillow and changing your sheets.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to go completely the opposite way now, because as you know, I went into my menopause about a year ago, and to begin with, I got really worried about it. I was almost keeping it a secret from Mark, because I felt all this almost shame, and because I've started to feel old. I felt like I'm drying up, I can't have babies, I'm losing hair in all sorts of places. Raging temperature. I mean, you know, I was getting the door, opening it, closing it, liking that sound. Bang, 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 bang. Head, foot, what? And like, the kids would go, all right, and I was screaming at the kids, I was screaming at Mark. He'd come in a door, he didn't know whether I was smiling, whether I was going to watch sex with him, whether I was going to punch him in the face. It was so full on, and but I wasn't having periods, so I couldn't put it down to premenstrual tension.
Yeah.
And I started to get really upset. I thought, nobody told me about this. Nobody, we as women haven't spoken about this.
Yeah.
A bit like the childbirth. And you could, God, all women had this conspiracy and they didn't tell me. I started to feel ashamed about it, didn't want anyone to know about it. I've gone completely the other way. I've gone holistic.
Did you feel it made you unsexy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not want sex and all of that. So I went completely the other way. I've gone to homeopathy and vitamins and all of that, and I'm feeling fantastic. But the most important thing, and I've only got very few seconds to say this, is we have to reclaim it. We have to say that, do you know what? This is the change because it's the change for good. Our nurturing hormones have dropped, which means we don't have to look after everybody else. We can look after ourselves. And these are the selfish decades. And there was an article the other day about how men now fear the menopause because there's a little part of them that goes, oh, my God, she might actually go, I'm going to go and do what I want to do now. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.